Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, this particular Anglo, Utah councilman he basically resigned out of Smithfield, Utah, that he resigned after he had some confrontation with these particular couple of Anglo officers. But a defund comment is where he messed up with them. White on white fatigue. Yes. White on white fatigue is definitely real. Yes. What was that, Dr. Spot? What do you think about white on white fatigue? You think that's real too? Yes. So the thing about in this particular topic of discussion is this particular Smithfield, Utah city council person that he got into a confrontation with a couple of Anglo officers about about his son was doing whatever he's doing in his car, and all of a sudden he ran into this car, and then this officer and his bag up came out there to talk to him. So I'm just kind of setting the direction up. And as you notice this, just imagine if this was a black man and he was on the city council and he did this, right? Just imagine that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right. So let me make sure you can see that. Let me make sure you can see that. Okay. Let me make sure the mute is off. Okay. Here we go.
Why are you here? He's asking you which car is involved.
Yeah, I want to know why there's two officers responding to such a simple thing.
Because there can be.
We pay a lot of money for you guys in the city.
Okay.
And I decide whether the budget's good or not. And so I think you should go patrol Main Street, do your job, and I'll talk to him and I'll deal with this.
Okay.
Go patrol Main Street. I'm not dangerous.
I'll talk to him.
Look, guys, we pay so much money for
man.
this.
Okay.
Hey, look, I decide.
Why don't you just hang out for a second?
Go patrol Main Street.
We'll
Make yourself useful. Come on, guys. Okay. Go patrol Main Street. Make yourself useful. Let's not waste taxpayer dollars.
So.
Now, again, if that would have been a black man, that was a city council person or however person, and he was doing that, yeah, that would have been a little bit different, because that wouldn't have lasted more than 10 seconds before those particular officers would have went to a different whole direction toward that black man, right?
Tell me what's going on.
Come down here. I've got a family event going on.
Okay, that's fair. I'm willing to do that.
I want to know why you're even here.
Because I am obligated to invest. There's a car that's wrecked down there.
Yeah.
And you have already talked to the guy and said that your son had run into his car.
Yeah. And I gave him my insurance and I gave him everything. And we already called and made an insurance report. State Farm's handling everything.
Okay. And it's also over $1,500. So I need to.
It's going to be his car's totaled. Yeah. So he called you. That's all you need to say. Hey.
Yes, he called me.
Yeah. See, this is the problem. And your guys' lack of training blows my mind.
Okay.
It blows my mind. Hey, Ted, I'm here. There was an accident. The person whose car
Will you please
owned.
not step up on me?
No, I'm telling.
I'm asking.
No. I'm telling you how you're supposed to do your job because you obviously don't know. Look, listen. Hey, Ted, the person that your son hit earlier has asked that I make a police report. I'm here to do that. Instead, you show up like you're an FBI agent doing some big secret thing. Like, who trained you? I want to know who trained you.
Can I get your son's name?
How old are you? Report. I'm here to do that. Instead, you show up like you're an FBI agent doing some big secret thing. Like, who trained you? I want to know who trained you.
Can I get your son's name?
How old are you?
Can I get your son's name?
How old are you?
Again, imagine if this would have been a black American man, a businessman, a Black American man. What's in the situation? Say if this would have been a Black American man, and he was on a city council type position, and he came across to these particular Anglo type officers, or this particular Anglo officer hero, and he started talking like that. Oh, again, it would have been a whole different outcome on this situation, right? But this white on white fatigue is extremely real as well. And look at how the officer is talking to him with humanity, right?
Okay.
How long have you been? How long have you been? How long have you been in Smithfield?
Impede an investigation?
No, are you gonna? Do you have a warrant to be here?
I'm on public property right now.
Now, isn't that interesting? When how many countless videos are out there when you have some bad seeds that would show up, say on some situations to some Black American type residents. Let's give an example for whatever situation, right? But let's give an example. Some jealous person, say they're in a predominant Anglo neighborhood or predominant Anglo with certain white Hispanicism, the one this applies to, and some other places that don't really want Black Americans in the neighborhoods. They want their own people in the neighborhood. Oh, this goes across various other cultures, right? Oh, you best believe there are some Black adjacent hotter tethers also, even though their demographics are so minute, but they're like a yapping chihuahua. They actually damn think that they make up a gigantic percentage in Americanism, and they don't. But that's a whole different topic in itself. And again, I'm not talking about some of the good ones. Keyword, some of the good ones on that. But this is interesting how he's talking to this particular Anglo officer, and he's talking to him again with humanity.
I'll cooperate with you, but you
I'm trying to.
No. You guys have got to learn how to do your job right. We are botching so many things in the city because of you guys, and you know that. You're aware of everything, and I'm aware of everything.
Can I get your son's name?
You can step onto my property, and I will talk to you if you will be reasonable. Let's start the conversation over.
Let's do it.
Please.
Let's do it. Hey, yeah, let's talk to each other, reasonably. And you hear this officer, and I'm like, he's treating him with maximum humanity treatment. You already said, hey, man, like the Anglo councilman is like, hey, man, we talk reasonably. And the Anglo officer is like, okay, let's do it. Now, again, if that would have been a Black American male in some kind of position, especially at city council or major political figure, the list goes on, right? Now, they're not worried about many of them because they say, oh, we know we got many of them as pawns, right? We ain't worried about many of them already. But we're talking about the very small amount that are not pawns. If that would have been one that did that, and he talked to the officer like that, golly. Now, I'm going to skip around a little bit because I'm trying to get to some other things. I want to show some comments on here a little bit too.
Please.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ted Stokes.
I am here because there was a complaint about your vehicle or your son hitting another vehicle, okay, and the vehicle looks like it's totaled.
And the person who made the complaint was the person who owned the car?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We already talked to him. I'm happy to help you out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we need your...
Two responding officers.
Yes.
For a non-moving vehicle incident.
Yes. What's your son's date?
You see how, oh my goodness, why do we need two officers to come up for this insignificant situation? But how many times the same type people are quiet when there's an outrageous numbers of some kind of officer that's been called toward Black Americans, and it's supposed to be some routineness. Say if it's a traffic stop and the bad seat version, and say he stops him, and I'm saying the ones who do the stop and it's under suspicious circumstances, right? Racial profile. I'm just giving an example. And say, for instance, this particular Anglo cop or someone with Anglo adjacent, or even some little deadly people of color, non-Black ones, or some Black adjacent hotter tethers who are beginning just as worse, or not a racial construct. Now, inside of them, they have some hatred toward Black Americans. But say if they start talking to the Black American who knows his rights after he's been stopped, right? He hasn't really done too much or did anything at all. And he knows the racial profile is stopped. And he starts saying, hey, officer, why are you stopping me? And this particular bad racial profile, bad seeds, trying to figure out and fish for some kind of reason to, figure out something, right? In best case scenario, he can figure out something where he can make that black male, move a certain way, where it is, and then bow, right? That's the best case scenario. The bad seeds love to happen. But say, for instance, if the black male knew his constitutionality rights, right? Now, the particular person that was in predominant culture, the particular Anglo officer, the one supplies to, he would say, back up real fast, right? See how that goes. He's just asking for the information. Hold on.
His driver's license?
Yeah, sure.
Now, let me just fast forward this a little bit. Because there's a part I want to get to also. The officer, he's walking from the resigned Anglo councilman in this very nice neighborhood toward this particular car his son owned, where his son was involved in an accident, not paying attention, and he ran to a parked car. So the officer is going toward this car, the son's car.
I can't believe that you guys are wasting. I can't believe you have him sitting there wasting tax dollars. Give me one good reason why he's there. Wasting tax dollars. I love that you want me to answer your questions, but you won't answer mine.
Now, that's some interesting concept, because that is something that does happen. And that's something that is ridiculous. When you have people who know who they are, they want people to answer certain questions on that, right? Fishing expedition on that. But at the same time, don't want to answer questions back overall, right? Or they're told by however their officials, when they do something wrong, do not answer questions. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
He doesn't dispute fault. Like, it's his fault.
So the officer is taking pictures of the son's car, the councilman who resigned car, and stuff like that. Look at the house in the background of that city council person, or the resigned one. Very nice background. And the city council personnel that in the resigning, he's infuriated that, it's like, hey, officer, you don't recognize who I am, basically.
Okay.
So he's calling some other
official.
official.
Okay.
Hey, Justin, Ted Stokes. Hey, I've got two police officers in my house. This is the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. Tucker hit a non-moving car in a road. We gave the insurance.
Cash, Bravo 12.
Gave the
Can I
insurance
get a
to the
1027
guy.
by number?
Everything was good. I think he called to make a report just to make it fine. Two officers show up at my house, walk up to my front door.
247 118 417.
Don't tell me anything other than we're here to do an investigation. And the other officer's still sitting here as backup. Like, this is, Justin, I'm sorry, but.
Sorry, 1090.
This can't happen, man. Like, this other officer needs to leave and stop making. Needs to go.
Yes, correct.
I'm trying to give a report to this, but he wouldn't even tell me. Like, it wasn't like, hey Ted, we're here. It's Officer Hansen. I'm blown away by this.
Now, this is the real simple part. I'm about to close it down on this part where he talks about defunding. That is a super major. It makes certain personnel within certain parts of economic culture, it makes them malfunction. It's like a computer malfunction, a robotic malfunction. It makes certain numbers of personnel within certain parts of economic culture, again, malfunction. Oh my goodness. Why are you talking about defund? Because they're so used to hearing something about, or they think they so used to hear something about some kind of Black American saying about defunding certain enforcement, right? Oh, but see, as long as bad seeds is affecting more Black Americans, then it's, oh my goodness, why Black Americans, certain ones talking about defund. We need to have more. And interesting, the more enforcement personnel, the still crime is still not gigantically roped in, because criminality is not going to be roped in by just having an extensive enforcementness, right? Because that still starts going to a more controlling environment, right? On that. Instead of putting more resources into community involvement, not talking about just training, which is a sellout infantile tactic. When you have some bad seeds, right, like some Derek Chauvin type people that know they did some wrong stuff, and the list goes on, right? And you have some people be like, oh well, they need to have more training. What do you mean? If they've been in training for 6 months, 8 months, a year, how much more training do they need? Which is logical part, right? If there's no threat to their lives, right, and they just happen to, and they're all just amped up because it's like want to do something bad to Black Americans, that's not about training. That is an internal, generational ingrained anti-American Black problem, right? That's ingrained within them on that. There's no training. That means that there should be an enforcement of laws toward that, like an anti-American Black hatred law. How about that? There's supposed to be hate crimes in the book. Why does that don't apply to a certain number within certain bad seeds? You see how that game goes. But the minute certain happens, when a situation where this councilman of this Smithfield, whatever it was, Utah council, where they made him resign, not because of his frustration at the officer, but he said this particular word that was a no-no.
Justin, I promise you, I will do everything in my power as a city council member to make sure these guys are defunded.
Oh, he shouldn't have said that. That was a manufacturing word, manufacturing mental sting, wasp sting to certain numbers of personnel within certain parts of economic culture. When they hear the word defund, because it automatically triggers them in mindset, oh my goodness, Black Americans. When it's like this had nothing to do with Black Americans on this, right? But it's interesting when situations happen to certain people within certain parts of economic culture. You hear something about border break, illegal immigrant personnel, numbers of immigration personnel that get reminded some different times. You know, the list goes on, right? Oh my goodness. We need to do something to rein in these bad type officers, how they treating human beings and stuff like that. And you hear some people talking about defunding, right? But at the same time, when it's some dealing with Black Americans, I'm not talking about sellouts and coons. When it's dealing with some bad seeds doing bad racial racism, profiling, putting illegal substances in people's cars, it's been caught on camera. And the thing about it is, when somebody said, oh, we need to do something about defunding, not defunding the bad versions of C's. Oh my goodness, they are anti-law enforcement. Oh, we want to pretend that for generations that this system has used bad seed versions of enforcement to utilize as slave patrols. We're going to pretend that there have never been no KKK inside KKK inside various sections of enforcement. We're just going to play that little silly freaking game, right? They really do think Black folks collectively are so stupid, right? Oh.
Give a report to this, but he wouldn't even tell me. It wasn't like, hey Ted, we're here. It's Officer Hansen. I'm blown away by this, Justin. I promise you, I will do everything in my power as a city council member to make sure these guys are defunded. There will be.
Woo! That's what got him in trouble when he said defund, and because he was saying there was some problems going on within certain parts of enforcement there, right? And that word defund makes certain personnel within certain parts of economics culture malfunction, right? So it's like, so you are basically complicit in not wanting the bad seeds to be fired from various parts of enforcement. Now, you can't sit there and stop every single one. It ain't been stopped in centuries because the premise is too good at that. But various ones within economics culture do not want a major cleanup in enforcement because it does not affect them on a gigantic level. They have not been generationally racial profiled by Black officers toward numbers of Anglo personnel. That's not even logical, is it? Nope. So it doesn't affect them. So certain numbers of personnel within certain predominate culture are basically voided in their mentalities to understand, right? With very few exceptions on this part.
Be 5 police officers in this town, because this is unbelievable that this guy needs a backup officer to make sure there will be 5. Blown away by this, Justin. I promise you, I will do everything in my power as a city council member to make sure these guys are defunded. There will be 5 police officers in this town, because this is unbelievable that this guy needs a backup officer to make sure I don't hurt him at my house for my son hitting a car non-moving. I waited a half an hour at the guy's house to give him his insurance policy. I'm fine with him making a police report. I'm blown away by the fact that right in the middle of my Sunday dinner, my daughter's birthday party, with 5 other cars here for guests. I've got 40 people at my house for a birthday party, and
So
I've got 2 officers at my house. And this guy's.
Can I talk to your son?
Who's the other officer?
Macomb.
Yeah, I've got Hanson and Macomb. This is unbelievable. Like, get on Main Street, the other officer, and go patrol. Instead, they're making sure City Councilman Stokes doesn't do something. Like, I don't know if this is retaliatory or what.
I don't know if it's retaliatory or what. Again, let me stop there. That's enough of that right there. Because I want to, why I do that for? Let me go back, because I want to sit there. I almost forgot. I wanted to go back and play some. I want to go back and play. I'll show some comments. So you see that last part I showed you. Again, it's like, oh my goodness. He was like, it must have been the other council member and stuff. Like he talking about an Anglo one, right? Because whatever their little biff stuff with each other, right? That's white on white type of fatigue. Say it again, white on white fatigue is very real too, right? But certain people within certain parts of mixed culture have this animosity where they do reverse Uno type tactics, and they try to, and all of a sudden, whoop, 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 whoop. Oh, something about black folks now. What? So that game goes, right? But let me go ahead and let me share my screen back again. I'm almost finished here. Let me go back and let me sit there and you can see that. Look at some of these comments. Let me just go down and look at some of these comments. Now, Utah City Councilman resigns after video surfaces showing confrontation with police. Now, what you saw, that was basically the majority of that. You didn't see anything where it's like, oh my goodness, he just went overboard. Nope. He had frustration, right? He had some privileged frustration toward, even though it was white on white fatigue, there was a certain type of caste system, white on white fatigueness that happens. Yes, there is a type of caste system within certain types of Anglonism. Yes, it's very real on that. So on this right here, the restraint the officer displays is admirable. Great job, officer. This guy is not a man. He's a drama queen. Don't know how the cop stays so calm dealing with such a pompous, arrogant jerk. Have you noticed still? You haven't seen anything about. I'm so tired of these Anglo privileged type people, the ones applies to, right? Nope. He's Smithfield, Utah City Council member Ted Stokes. He resigned yesterday because of this. Glad he's no longer anyone's city council member. Good riddance. His son's an adult and should have been interviewed by the cop, period. Smithfield, Utah City Council member Ted Stokes resigned, and now this embarrassment is all over the internet forever. What a colossal ASS. As a retired law enforcement officer, this is corruption as its finest. First, the officer should never left this nut job or order. Like, who do you think he is? Second, this nut job is why the second officer needed to stay. This man should never have held a position of power. What an absolute show of disrespect. Arrogant, abusive narcissist. Do you see this nerve of this? For what that councilman was doing, it did not show anything resembled to what they act like he was doing. He was frustrated. There was a party for whatever his kids or something like that. Officer showed up with bag up. The official thought the Utah Anglo council member thought it was access to officers. He called it access. And how many again videos have you seen where numbers of somebody's called in, say some false report and showed up at some Black American residence, or some kind of, which should be a routine traffic stop, right? I'm just giving an example. Oh, no, forget that. No, this is the type of traffic stop where it's a racial racism profile is going on, this kind, which happens every day, right? And have you noticed that the system makes sure not to sit there and get that reined in, by the way, because they want more of that. And so the thing about it is, say this particular Anglo officer or Anglo adjacent or white Hispanicism or some other people of color, minority, non-physical, marginalized people, nonsense, which is a bunch of bogus word terminology switchery, which knows the millions of American Blacks need to stop falling for those words. We're very few exceptions sheep to the game. And so those are bad sayings. There's a bad seed. He stopped this particular Black American male. Just give an example, not routine stop. Okay, some situation happened, he stopped, whatever reason. But this is racial racism profile stop. And so this particular Black male, not enough, knows the constitutionality rights. And so many start talking to this particular officer within the predominant culture once applies to the ones that's full of racial racism, hatred toward American Blacks, he'll call for bag up, right? And then also you'll see several enforcement calls come by. Not because the Black American male was being belligerent or threatening. Nope, that's because they blackmail. Cold that. Many officers show up, right? And here's some people that'll be like, well, he should have been compliant with the orders of that law enforcement person, even though it was unconstitutionality. That don't matter. Well, it don't matter when it's Black Americans, right? But when they serve laws within Panama's culture, then it's, oh my goodness, we need to get that reined in with these bad officer versions. I mean, I'm telling you, boy, this is a really messed up part with some people within certain parts of Panama's culture, and some other ones would be like certain ones, and the list goes on, right? So the last thing I want to sit there and show you is this: the outcome of this Smithfield City Anglo Utah councilman who had to resign, right? So I'm not going to read the whole thing because I just showed the video on that. In this situation, Smithfield City Councilman resigns after video surfaces showing confrontation with these particular officers, right? On that. Takeaway: Smithfield City Councilman Ted Stokes resigned after confrontation with police. Body cam footage shows Stokes criticizing officers, sparking community backlash. Stokes apologized for unprofessional behavior and submitted his resignation on Saturday. But we see this little nonsensical, infantile little deflection, the second one, right? Especially. Body cam footage shows Stokes criticizing officers, sparking community backlash. In that video, it did not show anything of some kind of gigantic proportions, right? It was like, oh my goodness, he was such blatantly wrong. No, what happened, he messed up when he said something about defund, because there have been some situations on questionable training within harbor enforcement personnel there. And this particular council personnel, maybe some others too, that were tired of getting maybe some complaints about certain not so good ones, right? So he felt he was frustrated that there's not enough correct training. Let's repeat the correct training, right? So he was kind of frustrated at certain type of officers. That was all. But nope. When he crossed the line, when he said that about somebody defunding, that's what messed him over, right? How dare, did you ever say those stuff like that in front of a camera like this, in front of however people that's watching it? Don't you ever say defund in front of white on whiteness? Don't you ever do that? They let him know behind door. Don't you ever do that? We only sit there and show anger toward the Black American Negro animals when someone will be talking about defund, because it doesn't affect us, that we know that they've been the victims of racial profiling, bad seed, KKK type, not ones that infested certain type of enforcement, but they ain't got a thing to do with us. So we only get mad. We'll pretend we play a little game with them when they say defund, right? We get angered and we'll say they just need to follow. They just need to, follow the law and and stop breaking laws. Even though, again, the majority of black folks don't commit the most crimes, even though the majority of black folks sit there and don't do bad things, right? So that game goes, right? So the outcome of this, the fallout. No, I don't go into all that. So right here, the city council released a statement on September 15, 2025. Today is October the 1st, 2025, saying its members disagreed with Stokes' behavior. No, the defund is what got him in trouble. How dare him? Don't you ever say that in front of a camera. Right? Ever say that, especially toward another Anglo personnel talking about defund. Don't you ever say that. They said, watch, we see the words, right? His threats and defiant actions were not in line with what we value and believe. The statement says, we will never condone rude, unprofessional, demeaning behavior, whether from an elected official or from our residents. How many numbers of bad seeds every day are rude, are professional, demeaning, threatening, violent toward Black Americans on a daily basis? And you don't hear no gigantic uproar from various people within the Predominate culture to rein that in, to have some kind of anti-American Black hatred law, to sit there and say, no, we can't rid immunity relating to various enforcement, right? But we at least got to rein in with some type of adjustment to that part. Nope. Because as long as it's affecting Black Americans, right, racial hatred, racial profiling by bad seeds, they not in no hurry. But at the same time, they say all those Black American Negroes, regardless, they're gonna sit there and vote and not want any true tangible things. But about less than a couple of years ago, we make sure to get an anti-Asian hate crime bill. You know, what does an Asian person look like? Because Iraq. Some people don't know that's Asian countries. Yes. Certain parts of Russia is considered Asian. But this system is so brilliant, they sit there when you say Asian, they act like a certain Asian, a certain look. You see the game on that, even though it's Afro-Asian personnel, right? But quiet on that. So you see the game of disgustingness, of trickery, and they know millions within American Blackism still haven't saw through this game yet, with very few exceptions, right? Because they say the Negroes, they're going to still vote regardless, without having, again, tangibilities. You know, we sit there and gave an anti-Asian hate crime bill because for the last several years, we made sure to sit there and blur out very questionable, unreliable, very white lie type of trickery, acting as if Black folks were sitting there and beating down Asians. And they found out it was actually certain numbers of ones within the Predominate culture that were doing that. You said that game goes, right? For the people who have been the most hated in America for centuries, for nothing. Well, for something, right? Because it's ingrained in the historicalness within Americanism, with very few exceptions, right? To have this hatred toward Black Americans when Black Americans haven't done anything to collective amount of people within the Predominate culture. And now the system wants more Black adjacent hodders, tethers come over to be a buffer, right? They want more fake people of color version, fake minority versions, even though numbers of women within the Predominate culture considered minorities, by the way. That's another topic, and they receive the most DEI. That's a whole topic in itself, right? See, these games keep going. So the thing about it is, this particular, in closing, this Anglo Utah city council, he messed up by sitting there saying something about defund. That's where he really messed up. It talks about how in an apology issued on September 15th, Stokes said he had already apologized to the officers involved, but felt a broad apology was also needed. He explained how much compassion he felt toward his son, knowing that he was okay after the accident, and said there was only kindness between him and the owner of the car his son had hit. As I stepped down the stairs, talking about that particular Anglo city council personnel from that city or town, basically, because I think they only had about a few thousand people. Were basically, by the way, it was obviously primarily Anglo-ness, Anglo adjacent one, and the second population in that town that this guy was city council was Hispanics, and then third was Black Americans, which is we ain't that many, first of all, on that. So he talked about how he had just expressed to his son and had received a witness from the victim of the accident. Disappeared in a moment of regret. He let the passion of disagreement regarding a bag of officer and the officer's initial statement control what would soon become an unprofessional behavior, he said. I sincerely apologize for my lack of professionalism toward those two officers. That's what he said. Even if I disagreed with them in any aspect, they deserve my respect and professionalism, as we all do one to another. Wrong. That person is not God. The things that they are supposed to take care of is laws that is legislated by politicians. Enforcement personnel do not make laws. Those laws are made by legislatures. Right? It's a whole different topic. We are allowed to not bring something, but how we handle. Let me read this last thing again. I sincerely apologize for my lack of professionalism toward those two officers, even if I disagree with them in any aspect. They deserve my respect and professionalism, as we all do one to another. We are allowed to not like something, but how we handle what we don't like should remain professional and respectful. I violate that canon of ethics on August 3rd, 2025. His statement said. Stokes submitted a resignation letter to the city council on Saturday, saying many people have brought their concerns to him in a respectful manner, but others were vile and disgusting. Translation: what is wrong with you? Did you look in the mirror? Yes, we know that there are some Anglo personnel that don't act like many of us, but I'm telling you, you messed up by sitting there saying that word defund. Would you ever say that? Because we, not coming to the city, come to in general, this happens in various parts of the state. Don't you ever say that word defund. That is something that we hear of certain numbers of Black Americans who we know that they have been racially terrorized for centuries, because that's what we brought up to be able to do that, right? Because it doesn't affect us, right? So then when you say the word defund, that throws things off, because we are supposed to be like, what are those Negroes talking about defund, right? Even though it's been already talked, let me phrase this, it already been investigated that there are, in however numbers still, a certain type of clan, certain type of questionable people that have a certain type of hatefulness, especially toward Black Americans, that are in certain types of enforcement. I'm just relaying that part. I'm not talking about the ones that this doesn't apply to, but the problem is there are quite a number of bad seeds. The ones who are not necessarily bad seeds, know that there's bad seeds in the mix, and especially in certain type of towns and certain type of cities that still have sundown towns. 2025, there are still sundown towns or sundown cities. But that's still going on. It's still allowed. He talked about how he lacked a proper judgment. In a moment of regret, his letter said, in light of that, I have no choice but to respectfully resign from my seat on the city council at this time to protect my family. His letter went on to explain how he had concerns about the size and quality of the police department, and since January, when the council was informed that there were significant concerns See, you see how they passed by that real fast, right? His letter went on to explain how he had concerns about the size and quality of this particular police department since January, when the council was informed that there were significant concerns. You see how personnel just bypassed that part, right? This year, he did not vote to increase the police budget and instead wanted that money to go toward a massive dead tree problem. What the mess is that about? He said, I want to reiterate that no context excuse my unprofessional behavior, but in light of this context being unreported, I wanted people to know that was on my mind at that time, he said. I also want people to know that I have no animus toward law enforcement. Watch this. It's like when people talk about, I have black friends after they've been after they come across the racial racism Klan members, right? They start reverting back to some kind of ingrainedness, right? So in this situation, he talks about how my favorite coach in high school and a father to me is a retired police officer and the father of one of my son's best baseball friends growing up, and the father of one of my son's best baseball friends growing up is a police officer. There are many other people I know who are in law enforcement, and I greatly respect and revere them. You see how this? You see how some of them, they revert back again to a certain type of despondency on that situation. He reverted back to something that was dormant inside of him, and that is to make excuses. Instead of him standing his ground and saying, look, he made a mistake, but there are some concerns on this situation. I was not wrong on that. I will not resign. Telling him he would not resign from the city council on that situation. But no, he made a mistake, big time mistake, because he said the words defund. And that was a no-no because it takes away of utilizing the terminology of defund, which numbers of personnel within certain parts of the predominant culture have whiteballed that word defund and associated that with saying, acting as if black folks are the problem, when some says we need to defund certain parts of the enforcement. Because what that is, instead of more American blacks saying, look, you mad because someone's saying that we want to defund the bad versions of enforcement? How about this? How about you sit there and get things correct in the bad seeds? How about that? No, because people don't want to do that, because it then takes away from correcting the bad seeds who have been doing this for generations toward American blacks. Not no other cultures, no other backgrounds. So the word terminology defund is automatically associated with black folks saying something like that. But the minute certain ones within the predominant culture who have been victims of some bad seeds, not by racial racism, hatred, but over power trip, then they're like, oh my goodness, we gotta rein in some of these police officers. But as long as it's something that is racial racism, hatred by certain types of bad enforcement people, there's like, oh my goodness, black folks need to be compliant with the laws. You see how the double standard is. I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.